tribe that doesn't really fit on both the maps what we look at tonight. It is true, it is legitimate, but it's not what we look at tonight. You'll see on this map, right there, and on this map at the top, you'll see the name Dan. So you'll see, I don't know if you like to see, yeah, Dan right there. And then you see Dan down here also. See Dan here, and then you see Dan right there. There's not two tribes of Dan. Dan settled in, this is a little bit of ahead of ourselves, I guess, but Dan settled in an area, and then they got ran out because they didn't follow the Lord's command. They didn't get rid of the Philistines. And so they got run out of their land, and they settled up north of, they got as far away from that problem as they could, settled up north of Naphtali and Asher. And so, anyway, I think you'll enjoy that map. We'll look at it a couple of times tonight, not a lot, but it gives you a little bit better understanding of the land. I probably ought to bring my map out here one night, the one that's on my door. I ought to bring it out here one night. I've got a big 4-foot, 5-foot map in my office. Maybe I'll put it up here one night in the next few weeks. We're not going to read all of these verses. We're going to read through the book of, or through the passage on Benjamin, and then we're just going to kind of hit the next few. All right. A little bit of about the tribe of Benjamin, picking up in verse 11. And a lot of the tribe of the children of Benjamin came up according to their families, and the coast of their lot came forth between the children of Judah and the children of Joseph. And their border on the north side was from Jordan, and the border went up to the side of Jericho. On the north side went up through the mountains westward, and the goings out thereof were at the wilderness of Bethaven. And the border went over from thence towards Luz to the side of Luz, which is Bethel, southward. And the border descended to Atarothadar, near the hill that lieth on the south side of the nether Beth-horon. Okay, so let's go over to verse 22. These are the cities that are mentioned. In Beth-Abra, and Zemarim, Bethel, Avim, Para, Orpha, Chephar, Hamanai, and Ophni, and Geba, 12 cities with their villages, Gibeon, Ramah, and Beeroth, Mizpah, Chephirah, Mozah, Rechem, Irpil, Terala, Zillah, Eleph, Jebusai, which is Jerusalem, Gibeath, and Kirjath, 14 cities with their villages. This is the inheritance of the children of Benjamin according to their family. So number one, Benjamin. Benjamin was the baby of the family. He was the baby of the family. He was, the man was the 12th son of Jacob, 12th and final son of Jacob, and the second son of Rachel. Rachel was the mother. Now, remember that Rachel was Jacob's favorite. Rachel was the one that Jacob originally worked for. And then Laban put Leah in her place. He married Leah, and then he worked another 7 years, worked 14 years for Rachel. Was his favorite. She gave birth to Joseph and gave birth to Benjamin. And in the birth of Benjamin, Rachel died during his birth. The blessings that were given. In Genesis 49:27, we read of Jacob's blessing on Benjamin. And then in Deuteronomy 33, verse 12, is Moses' blessing on the tribe. Under the tribe, the borders. And I tried to do this pretty consistently through this, and you can look at your maps if you want to as we look at the borders of these lands. Benjamin, you're going to find right above the Dead Sea, just north of the Dead Sea. And of course on the back, same place. Just a small sliver of land, relatively speaking, in that area. On the border to the north was Ephraim, Manasseh. And the reason I put Ephraim/Manasseh is because depending on the map you look at, now this map, it's Ephraim. I'm not sure this is exactly accurate, but depending on the map you look at, Manasseh comes down on the east side of Ephraim. and sometimes you'll see it on some maps, it shows it bordering Benjamin. Okay? So that's why I've got Ephraim, Manasseh. And throughout this outline, when you see a slash, it is either that they both do border, or depending on the map you look at, one of them borders it. Okay? On the east was the Jordan River. The south was Judah. Now, you can't see it here, I don't believe. I don't think it's on this map. But I've got there that the southern border was Judah, and in between Benjamin and Judah, along that border was the Valley of Gehenna. Y'all know what the Valley of Gehenna was. Do what? No. The Valley of Gehenna is where the worshipers of Baal would cast the babies into the furnaces as sacrifice. And so that's where that area is located. That doesn't have anything to do with anything else other than it's a point of interest. Okay? To the west of Benjamin is Dan. You can see that on this map right here. And you can see Dan over here. Some important cities. Now, if you want to read all the cities, once we get past Benjamin, they're not even all listed in all the tribes. It just tells you how many cities they used for the marking of the land. But in the tribe of Benjamin, Jericho was not an important city necessarily in the tribe, but we understand, we recognize the name Jericho, the city of Jericho. Wouldn't it have been wouldn't it have been neat to have that landmark near enough to walk and look at? The things in our lives, when difficulties come and we look back on our life and we say, okay, I've been through that. Lord, you brought me through that. So now, this is what I'm going through now. Get me through this. Can you imagine? You got a difficult situation in your life and you go, you know what? I'm going to go down to Jericho. I'm going to go look at how good God is. And you go down there and see that nothing's left except the tower where Rahab was. And there's the reminder of God's goodness, God's faithfulness right there. Jericho was in the tribe of Benjamin. Bethel. And we looked at that in the tribe of Manasseh or Ephraim. I believe some of these cities kind of border both tribes. And maybe the northern part of Bethel was in Ephraim and the southern part was in Benjamin. I think they shared parts of it. Of course, in our land, you live in Colbert, in Oglethorpe County. That's ridiculous to me. No. Well, yeah. Right, I understand. Yes, they do. Yeah. But Madison County and Oglethorpe County share Colbert. It's something similar to that. It's not just when we think of a biblical city, we think of a Jericho that had a wall around it, and that was the city. I think sometimes that's Jericho. Well, Jericho was everything outside of it too in that area. It wasn't just within the wall. And so Bethel wasn't even a walled city, I don't believe. And so that area was shared by both of them, okay? Then we come to Jerusalem. Letter C, Jerusalem. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that Judah had Jerusalem. And there's a reason for that. And there's a reason that I made mention that it wasn't listed in the cities of Judah. And there's a reason for that. Because in the initial division of the lands, Jerusalem existed within the tribe of Benjamin. But not many years later, and we come to this in history in just a minute, but not many years later, Jerusalem was absorbed. I've got letter C. It was surrendered, Jerusalem, to the tribe of Judah. That's not really the best way to say it. Annexed would probably be a better word. Judah annexed Jerusalem. And so although Judah did end up with Jerusalem, it didn't start that way. It was in the tribe of Benjamin. Now, history, and I don't do this with all of them. Historically speaking, Benjamin was a tribe historically shrouded in violence. They were, I don't know why it was that group, but it was because of Benjamin in the book of Judges. Can't remember which chapter, but in the book of Judges, there is a civil war takes place because a group of Benjaminites raped a Levi's concubine, and it set off a civil war, and they all but destroyed the tribe of Benjamin. 10 of the other tribes came and fought Benjamin and almost destroyed the entire tribe. It was a terrible, terrible thing. But even after that, through their history, Benjamin was seemingly involved in all sorts of warring and violence and things like that. It's a very fertile land. That part of the land is extremely fertile. And then letter C, surrendered the city of Jerusalem to Judah and eventually became part of the southern kingdom with Judah. So that's Benjamin. Come number 2, Simeon. Simeon the man was the second son of Jacob and Leah. Reuben was the oldest, then Simeon. The tribe blessings, Jacob's blessings given in Genesis 40, verses 5 through 7. But interestingly, Moses' blessing, not mentioned. There's no blessing of Moses. If you go back to, and I can't remember the passage in Genesis, but Jacob's daughter, one of his daughters, and it was a brutal, it was just a almost seemingly godless society in Genesis. One of his daughters was raped. Dinah was raped. And I can't remember the town. Does it? Shechem. So the prince of Shechem raped Dinah. Then, and they found out about it, and then the king came and said, hey, the ruler, the mayor, governor, whatever you want to call him, of Shechem came and said, hey, will you, can we have Dinah for him to marry? I guess to make it right. I don't know. And they said, sure, but here's what you got to do. Every man in Shechem has to be circumcised. They said, all right, we'll do it. So they were circumcised, and in the midst of their pain, Levi's family and Simeon's family went into Shechem and killed everybody almost. Destroyed almost everybody. Against Jacob's blessing. It seems that the other brothers knew it was going to happen, and they went and they plundered the town. They took the loot and had no problem with that. But the families of Levi and Simeon went in and destroyed it. And it seems that just kind of stayed with this tribe. There's not a lot of mention about Simeon. In fact, can you imagine being the tribe that gets the allotment that, Judah's kind of big, so why don't you just go with them? Why don't you just go live in the midst of their tribe? Chapter 19, There, verse 1, the second lot came forth to Simeon, even for the tribe of children of Simeon according to their families. And their inheritance was within the inheritance of the children of Judah, and they had their inheritance. Yeah, they are. Verse 9, out of the portion of the children of Judah was the inheritance of children of Simeon, for the part of the children of Judah was too much for them. Therefore the children of Simeon had their inheritance within the inheritance of them. They're just kind of an afterthought. It's kind of an afterthought. But if you go back, this is the one we'll go back and read. Genesis chapter 40, verses 5 through 7. This really isn't a blessing that Jacob gives. It's just his last words to them. And they dreamed a dream, both of them, each man his dream one night. No, that's not it. 49, Genesis 49. That's the wrong chapter. Sorry about that. Simeon and Levi are brethren. Instruments of cruelty are in their habitations. O my soul, come not thou into their secret, unto their assembly. Mine honor, be not thou united. For in their anger they slew a man, and in their self-will they digged down a wall. Cursed be their anger, for it was fierce, and their wrath, for it was cruel. I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. Not a blessing. Not a blessing. Just his last words. Can you imagine that being the last words of your dad to you? But because of their wickedness, their revenge, that's what he said to him. Okay? Borders. On the north side, Naphtali. The east was the Jordan River. To the south was Issachar, Manasseh. Again, wait, hold on a second. I skipped. I'm sorry. Surrounded by Judah. I skipped down to Zebulun. I'm sorry. They're surrounded by Judah. Probably the most familiar city we would know would be Beersheba. Then we come to Zebulun. Sorry about jumping ahead of you there. Come to Zebulun. He was the 10th son of Jacob. This is weird. He was the 10th son of Jacob, the 6th son of Leah. So he was the last son of Leah, the 10th son of Jacob. It's weird. You got to make that distinction. The tribe. Blessings were given in Genesis 49:13 by Jacob and by Moses in Deuteronomy 33:18. Now we come to the borders. To the north was Naphtali. To the east was the Jordan River. Again, when you look at, depending on the map you look at, some maps, it goes all the way over to the Jordan River. Some, as this one, have Naphtali, Issachar as the eastern borders of that. On this one, to the south, Issachar, Manasseh. So it's all depends on what map you look at. Probably outside of the north, this may be the most questionable mapping, because everything except, and I don't have it on here, I've just got Jordan River, but except for Naphtali to the north, all other borders are questions, depending on the map you look at. Some maps have Zebulun going all the way to the Mediterranean Sea, and this one, of course, has Asher as its western border. So, it is what it is. It's not mentioned in this passage. The most famous, well-known town we would know would be Nazareth. That would be the city that we would know best, would be Nazareth. Then we come to Issachar. Wait a second, that's not right. Issachar should be the 9th son of Jacob, 5th son of Leah. That should not be 6th, that should be 5th. Yeah, under Issachar, number 2, should be the 5th son of Leah. 9th son of Jacob, 5th son of Leah. The blessings given in Genesis 49, 14 and 15, of course, all these blessings, the chapter's the same, the verses just vary. Moses is in Deuteronomy 33. Now, this one, the borders to the north of Issachar are Zebulun and Naphtali, depending on the map. Actually, on many maps, they both share, as this map shows. They both kind of share a northern border with them. The east is Jordan/Galilee, depending again on the map. To the south is Manasseh. Nobody really argues that. There's no disagreement with that. To the west, you've got Asher, Manasseh, or Zebulun, depending on the map. It could be two of them, one of them. Some of them have all three of them as a border. The most popular city is Jezreel. We don't really know the city of Jezreel. We know the valley of Jezreel. And Jezreel is going to be right where the word Israel is, just to the north of the S. You see, Valley of Jezreel goes across the R in Israel, and Jezreel is just to the north of that. Yeah, it would be right in the middle of E of an F. 7. You got it? Find the R in Israel and go due north. And that is the valley to the west of Jezreel, is the valley of Jezreel. You see the plain of Megiddo and the valley of Jezreel run at an angle, and they just go right together in there. And when you stand there, those of us who have been there, when you stand there and you think about the book of Revelation where it says that the blood will flow to the horse's bridle. Between this and this isn't a whole lot, depending on the horse. And it is huge. I remember as a kid, I thought the valley, the valley, it's going to run to the horse's bridle in a valley, and I thought this, which is a big deal. I mean, that's a lot of blood. But it is an expanse. It's unbelievable, really. It is. No, it's not. It's not 200 miles. No, Israel's not much more than 200 miles long itself. It's about 10 miles wide and 20 miles long, I think is what it is. That would be a general dimension about that. We then come to Asher. Asher was the 8th son of Jacob, but the 2nd son of Zilpah. I don't know. The tribe. Blessings given in Genesis 49, verse 20. Moses' blessing given in Deuteronomy 33, verse 24. The borders of Asher, not real hard. To the north you have Phoenicia, or later Syria. That should be capitalized. I don't know why I did that. Didn't even auto-correct it either. Phoenicia, Syria. To the east, Naphtali. There's no debating that. To the south would be Zebulun, Manasseh, Issachar, any number of those. To the west would be the Mediterranean. And depending on the map you look at, I believe that most maps, this one has it. Mount Carmel, I don't have the city. There's not a city, Mount Carmel. But Mount Carmel is in the tribe of Asher. That's another one of my favorite. That's probably outside of Galilee, parts of Galilee, not all of Galilee, but parts of Galilee, and the old city of Jerusalem. Mount Carmel is my favorite individual spot. From Carmel, you can see the valley, the Jezreel Valley, Valley of Megiddo, Valley of Armageddon, over all the way to the Mediterranean. Yeah. In fact, it's not even hard to see. I mean, the Mediterranean's right there. It's very close. The most famous city probably would be Tyre. Tyre. Mentioned in the New Testament by Jesus, Tyre and Sidon. Then we come to Naphtali. Naphtali was the sixth son of Jacob, the second son of Bilhah. How would you keep up with all this? Gracious days, I got 4 kids from one wife, and it's hard enough keeping up with them. I can't imagine having 13, really, sons from 4 women. How would you keep up with everything? That's crazy. It's just crazy. Do what? The wives, well, yeah, they know their own kids. Joseph would be number 13. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Manasseh and Ephraim make the 13th. Right, yeah. The man Naphtali, sixth son of Jacob, second son of Bilhah. The tribe, the blessings given, Genesis 49:21. Jacob's, Moses, Deuteronomy 33:23. The borders of this one, of Naphtali, to the north, Phoenicia, or Syria, which really is modern-day Lebanon. And Lebanon actually comes down into those tribes modern day. You can drive on the way up to Caesarea Philippi, which is not a pleasant trip for some. You drive right along the border of Lebanon. And in between Israel and Lebanon is a hundreds of yards wide minefield to keep each group out of their land. And Trump just wants a wall. Can you imagine if he said a minefield? Good grief. They'd roast him, literally. Phoenicia, Syria to the north, to the east, Manasseh. Now that's the half tribe. That's west or east Manasseh. To the south, Zebulun or Issachar, and to his west or to its west, Asher. The famous or most known cities, they don't exist in this time, just like Nazareth. Actually, Tyre didn't exist in this time. Nazareth didn't exist in this time. But most famous cities we would know probably Migdal and Capernaum. You can see that Naphtali comes into the most of the Sea of Galilee is in Naphtali. And Migdal is on the, like maybe on here. No, it's not. It's not on here. Migdal's on the very eastern side of Galilee. But you will see on this map where Capernaum is, but it's called Chinneroth. On the north side of the Sea of Galilee is Chinneroth, and that's Capernaum. That's where Capernaum is located. All right. We come to the last tribe, and that is Dan. Dan was the fifth son of Jacob, the first son of Bilhah. Oh, by the way, I meant to say this earlier. When they went out and scouted the land, and they went into Judah apparently to scout out land for somebody, and it's just right in the middle, according to most maps, right in the middle of Judah. Can you imagine being that tribe? That you just kind of get thrown the leftovers of being a part of another tribe. You're just going to be swallowed up. You're just going to be swallowed up by Judah. And really, they just became part of the tribe of Judah, really, is what happened. I know that's way back. We've already talked about that. But that's just, The tribe of Dan, blessings, Genesis 49, verses 16 through 18 was Jacob's. Moses, Deuteronomy 33, verse 22. The borders to the north was Manasseh. To the east, Ephraim or Benjamin. To the south, Judah. And to the west, Mediterranean. And again, they got in that, and it's the Testament, whenever you get into the book of Judges, it mentions, now we read, for these other tribes we've looked at individually for the most part, we read that they went in and they didn't do what the Lord asked them to, and they didn't drive out the inhabitants. almost all of them did that very thing. We just don't read about it with these tribes. When you get into the book of Judges, there are places where it mentions that this tribe didn't do it. They didn't obey the Lord and didn't drive out the inhabitants of that area. Well, Dan gets in, and they're in the land of the Philistines. And they go in there, and they, like everybody else, got comfortable, and then they got taken over. And so they decided, we're just going to move. They abandoned the inheritance of the Lord for what they thought was better because they weren't willing to do what God had asked them to do. Doesn't that sound like Christians? Man, when I read through that, I thought, how many Christians have abandoned the inheritance of the Lord because things got too tough? Things got tough and they said, I'm just going to move. I'm going to get as far away from this problem as I possibly can. You know what happens? The problem stays with you. You don't read much about most of these tribes after Joshua and Judges because they didn't obey the Lord. They just didn't do what they were supposed to do. And then the chapter 19 ends with an inheritance for Joshua. And Joshua's inheritance was in Timnath-Serah, or Timnath-Heres. You'll see that. You'll see Timnath, Heres, in some places. See if I can remember where it's at. Let me find Ephraim. Okay, there's Ephraim. Yes, there it is, yeah. It's in the mountainous region of Ephraim. If you find Ephraim right above, in fact, it's in the D of Judah. It's in the stem of Judah. Okay, and so it's a elevated city up in the mountains, Timnath-Serah, in the tribe of Ephraim, and we come to that's the end of looking at the tribes themselves. I think I mentioned a couple of weeks ago a website, and I told you I would get you if you wanted it. And I think let's see here. Some of you would really enjoy it, and I can't remember. It's like Israel-a-history-of.com, I think is what it is. It's really weird, the actual website. Let's see if I've got it here. See if that's it. Yes, I think that's it. Israel-a-history-of.com. Israel a history of. Just a dash in between them. .com. Some great information. And I thought it was written from a Jewish point of view. It's not. It's actually, it's written from a Christian point of view, because it does include things about Jesus Christ in there. So it's a good website for studying these tribes if you have any interest in that, and getting some good information historically of the tribes. We come to next time. We come to the cities of refuge. Chapter 20 is the cities of refuge, and we'll look at that next time. All right, Lord, thank you so much for the truth of your word, the truth that if we will follow you, do what you ask us to do, you'll take care of us. And Lord, it's sad to look at these passages, and see the lack of obedience on the part of these tribes. But Lord, it just kind of reminds us of shamefully of us sometimes. Lord, may we be more obedient to what you have for us. In Jesus' name, amen.